This is Spare Time Repair, and this is a vintage Sanyo CD player from 1987. Regular viewers may recall that I've been on the lookout for a single CD player for a while, but the only ones I seem to find are multi-CD changes. Well, at the weekend I saw this, and after my initial excitement I feared that perhaps it was another magazine-type changer, given the height of the tray front. But there was no text on the player to suggest that, and my instinct was that changes didn't become common until perhaps the early 1990s. The obvious test was to plug it in and press eject, but that's when I discovered that the eject doesn't work, so it's likely that it needs a new belt to fix that. I did a search on my phone and found very little information about this unit, but I did find a picture of a similar model that has the same tray design, so I'm now certain that it is indeed a single disc model. Apart from the eject issue, I'm hoping this player will be in working order, because there's a lot I really like about it. The mid-80s aesthetic is right up my street, especially these enormous buttons that echo the first ever commercially available CD player, the Sony CP101. I also love this backlit LCD display. I've had a few troubles recently with vacuum fluorescent displays, but I know for sure that this display will always look clear and sharp. The ridiculously large tray front marks it out as an early model for the format. It's as if they wanted the process of loading a disc to be as ostentatious as possible. Other things of note are that the manufacturer's name is in the top right corner instead of the usual top left, which is reserved for the latching power switch. There's no digital output, which didn't become common until later, and the RCA analog outputs aren't colour-coded as they are on most players. Also unusual is the fact that the date manufacturer sticker is on the side rather than the back, and I'm intrigued that it lists the manufacturer as KDD. I couldn't find any information on this. Was KDD a code for Sanyo, or did somebody make it for them? I don't associate Sanyo with hi-fi components, and they wouldn't have been my maker of choice for a CD player, but I think the build quality of players from this era was probably superior to when they became cheaper in the 1990s. So I'm excited to see if this model works, and if so, to restore it to its former glory. But before I do anything else, I want to give this thing a good wipe, because it's dirty and sticky and gross. It's sort of a white streak across the front here. I don't know whether something's got spilled on it or it's some fading. I'll give it a proper clean later, but this is just so it's a bit nicer to handle. You can see I paid just $9 for this, which would be quite the bargain if it does work. The plug's gross, everything's gross. I might actually put a new cord on it. So let's have a look inside. I wonder if there'll be a CD in it. Well, no CD, but it looks a bit cleaner inside at least. I can't immediately see where the belt is. Can we push it out manually? Can plug it in again and then see if we can give it a helping hand with the eject. Well, there is a belt under here. Doesn't feel particularly slack. In fact, that's not the eject belt because that's not moving. If I put a little mark on it, see, that doesn't move at all. Just noticed that the backlight for the LCD display is actually an incandescent bulb. I'd assumed it was an LED, but no, it's actually a little warm. So the display is green, so that's obviously done with a filter rather than the colour of the bulb itself. So will the whole tray pull out? Yes. And the front bezel is attached with a couple of screws, so I'm glad I didn't try to unsnap it too hard. In fact, I should see if it will read a disc before I focus too much on the eject mechanism. Tray doesn't want to feed back in now. May need to remove this cog. Well, it's not that that's stopping it. Oh, it's because I wasn't fed under the, there's a couple of runners under here. I wasn't fed in there properly. Right, so let's insert a disc and help if I plugged it in again. Well, it has read the disc, which is very encouraging. And we appear to have playback. Very quiet mechanism. Everything looks good. Well, that's interesting. When you press stop, the display just goes blank. I mean, it shows the number of tracks here, but normally it would revert to the table of contents when it first reads the disc, but it hasn't done that here. I like that it has an index marker. That's for separate parts of the same track. So you might get a part 2 of track 1, for example. Not many discs utilize this, but it's a nice little feature to have. And yeah, and when you do another eject cycle, then we return to the original table of contents and the overall length. So if I press stop now, will that disappear? Yeah, that's weird. Well, I know this is a repair channel, but I didn't want to have to replace the laser or anything like that, because I did want a working CD player. So I'm really pleased that the only issue seems to be the eject. We've got these springy bits within the disc tray itself. I don't think they serve much function beyond a little bit of support and suspension for the disc. Those are operated by these 2 little posts here. When the tray is closed, those are pushed down by the disc clamp here, which drops the disc down a little bit. So you can see if I can remove this disc clamp first. So yeah, it looks like this belt is responsible for the laser sled. See that moving slowly forward as I turn it. Then this is the little limit switch that tells it that the laser's at the end of its travel. Honestly, this belt feels fine. I don't think there's any need to replace it. We've got a very long linkage arm to the power switch at the back. It'd be helpful to unclip that. The laser lens looks very clean. The spindle platter less so. And I've just spotted the belt for the eject mechanism. Might be able to just see that down here. So we're going to have to remove this whole transport. So it's held down with these 4 pretty hefty screws. Would be helpful to remove this front panel. So removing one of the feet reveals a screw underneath it. Same with the other one. Okay, that's now slid off sufficiently. I'd like to get all this disconnected because it's pretty grubby inside the front panel, and I'd like to give that a good scrub. Got a lot of ribbon cables here. 5 different connectors. This linkage arm does not want to come off. I don't really know why I'm worrying about it, because the mechanism will clearly slide out beside it, but I would like to get it off. Looks like the front power button has actually been glued on. This transport mechanism feels very solid, and it's on some nice rubber shock mounts, which still feel supple. They haven't gone hard at all. And we can flip this over quite easily. And here's our belt, which is still intact, but a little bit slack. Oh, well, that's annoying. I can't just slip the belt off. It's on the bottom side of this pulley, or the top side, I guess, if it's flipped the right way. It's meshing with other gears, so you can't pull it off there. And on this side, it's got this plastic plate. I don't think it's going to come off there either. So I think I'm going to have to remove this gear, and then it should slip off this one. Obviously, I want to reattach this in the correct position. So I'm just going to put a dot on it where it meets this leaf switch. And really, I want to remove the leaf switch as well. Yeah, the leaf switch is clipped in on the other side. There we go. We can lift that out of the way. I think I'm going to clean the contacts on that because it looks pretty corroded. So now we can remove this cog. Okay, that snapping noise was this spring. I think I'm going to have to remove all these cogs. This is not as straightforward as I thought. Okay, there's a cam in that one. Plenty of grease, which still looks good. And now we can lift this one out. And finally, unhook the belt. Yeah, it's gone a little bit stiff. They just go a bit hard and shiny. Just lost its grip, really. Hopefully I've got one within my bag that will do the trick. I think this one will do it. It's ever so slightly smaller and obviously a lot more grippy. So I want to push this down here, pull it through from the other side. Feels like that should work. I hope so, because it's a bit of a faff to change it again. To clean these leaf spring contacts, I'm just going to use a piece of paper dipped in alcohol and just gently wipe between them. There's actually nothing coming off them. So now the cam gear lining up this dot, and this little post has obviously got to go in this groove. Just force that forward a bit. All right, that feels okay. And just clip this leaf spring back in. Well, I didn't feel it click, but I think it's in there pretty solidly. Perhaps I should change this other belt while I'm at it. This one looks about the same size. I've just temporarily replaced the front panel. Alright, so let's power it up again, see if that's solved the problem. Well, it didn't go in all the way. Let's try that again. Yeah, that seems good. Alright, so now we just need to give it a really good clean. I've given these parts a good scrub and they've come up okay. There's a few scuffs on the drawer front, but it is 37 years old. So I really need to detach this front panel completely. So hopefully all these ribbon cables come out quite simply. I should label these really because some of them potentially could get mixed up. Well, I'll remember that the rightmost one goes in the highest socket. I'll just put stickers on these ones. Two and three are split in two, but they're going into a single socket. Okay, we're free. Looks like the front panel components will come out fairly easily. Very easily. I've never seen an LCD display like that before. And that is very simple indeed. There's a hole in the back here, presumably for an infrared sensor on a different model. It looked like that CP850 model had an infrared sensor. Yeah, and all these buttons just unclip, which is great. It'll make it very easy to clean. Having said that, these ones on the bottom here are a little trickier to get out. So there are clips on the bottom, but this hinged section is stopping them pressing in properly. And given how fragile this plastic looks, it's probably not a good idea to mess with that too much. So I think I'm going to leave those in and just scrub it as it is. I'm intrigued by this display though, so I'm going to open it up and see what's inside. Okay, so we've got our LCD display, which is just basically transparent. And then under here, we've got the green filter. And then you've got this diffuser in the front. And then two more diffusers inside. Those are stuck down with this adhesive panel. And then inside you've got the incandescent bulb. And that just comes out because it's on a little rubber grommet. That is branded Stanley. I like it. So you could swap this gel out for a different color and completely change the look of the LCD display. Maybe blue or orange. I like the green though. And although I'm sure they're all fine, I'm going to give these buttons a spray of contact cleaner just to be sure. I've given the front panel a good wash, but unfortunately there's this weird speckling pattern. It's on these buttons, it's on the acrylic panel. Even on this fascia here. Looks like something has been sprayed on it at some point which has attacked the plastic in some way, and I just can't get it off. I've scrubbed at it, I've tried alcohol. It's a real shame, but that is as clean as I can get it. It's a bit weird that when this board is in place, the button labels are upside down. That threw me for a moment. I am going to clean the lens before I reassemble. Don't think it was dirty. And these marks won't come off the spindle. They look like corrosion, but obviously you'll never see those. Not sure this sled ever had any grease on it. It doesn't look like it did. I think it's worth putting a dab on just to be safe. Now we can refit the large transport screws. I almost forgot to refit the power linkage arm. Here we go. Get a couple of screws in the bottom to stiffen it up a bit. Now the feet can go back on as well. And I've made a mistake because these ribbon cables needed to be connected before I secured the front panel, because this board for the display covers the sockets. So all these screws in the bottom have to come out again. And so now I can reconnect. Make sure my pins are straight first. Okay, those all feel seated nicely. And of course the disc clamp. Gave the top case a proper clean and it's come up pretty well. And that white residue that I mentioned earlier seems to have all come off with alcohol. I did think about replacing the power cord, but it's actually cleaned up okay. I'm just going to wire brush these output jacks, although they don't look too bad. And the magic shoe shine never hurts, does it? I've got it hooked up to the amplifier now, so let's give it a final test. Well, that actually sounds really good. And apart from this weird quirk where it displays 0 after pressing stop, I'm really pleased with it. I think it was a really good find. And to my surprise, it will even play CDRs. I've got it muted for copyright, but I didn't think it would play it because a lot of older players don't. So that's an unexpected bonus. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.